On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Kunal Agarwal. He is the co-founder and CEO of Unravel Data. We're going to be talking about purpose-built AI. We're going to actually try to cover as much as we can because Kunal's company is doing some pretty interesting stuff and how they are leveraging AI and in the problem space they're in. And we're going to be talking also about the symbiotic relationship with a product that uses AI and the engineering team. Kunal, I'm excited to have you on to kind of cover a bunch of stuff for us. Thank you for your time.
Amir, thank you so much for having me here at Tech Track. Really excited to talk to you.
Thank you. Before we start, obviously you're the co-founder, CEO. What does Unravel Data do, just so that everyone's aware of that?
So Unravel Data is a data observability and a data FinOps platform that data engineering teams are using today to make sure of a couple of things. Number one, that the data applications, which are becoming business critical, as we all know, are running on time every time. That if something's wrong with it, they can go and fix that problem quickly. And as they're scaling their data operations, as they're bringing on more data workloads, that they're scaling it in an efficient manner. They understand where the costs are getting allocated. They understand if there's any inefficiencies in the platform that they can solve for so that they grow in a linear fashion given just the needs of data exploding every day inside their company.
Awesome. It's funny. I talk to CEOs of data observability platforms more than I realize, and every time I talk to somebody, I realize how much AI is going to make an improvement in the engineers' lives, right? Because obviously there's a lot of repetitive things that could be looked at, and we're going to get to that. But before we do, I kind of mentioned in the opening sequence about purpose-built AI, and I guess AI is hot. Everyone's talking about AI in every which way,
right?
And when we're talking about purpose-built AI, what does that mean to you? I guess before we even start.
Yeah, good question. Because we're all enamored with generative AI these days. The easiest way to think about it is broad versus narrow and shallow versus deep. And the purpose-built AI is designed for a specific set of problems to go and solve. A driverless car would be a good example of that. And we employ some of those techniques in the Unravel product also to go and solve problems that we specifically see data engineering teams and data operations teams face every day. So while they could use generative AI to get questions to broader topics, what the Unravel platform or a purpose-built AI platform for observability would do is give them specific answers to the problems that data engineers would have in their day-to-day business, whether they are creating a data application, trying to promote or test a data application, or run that data application in production. We've been able to work with some of the leading organizations in the world who have thousands of engineers, hundreds of thousands of data pipelines, applications, machine learning models running on their environment. And we've been fortunate enough to work with this data set to really understand what are some of the common problems, some common inefficiencies, some common failures that happen within their environment. And we've been able to codify to understand why those things happen, what can be the root causes of those potential scope of issues, and how do you actually go and resolve that? And when you start to codify it into a machine learning model, then you're applying predictive analytics on top of, then you can start to give people answers, very pinpointed answers to go and get out of a problem, rather than inundating them with a whole set of data and saying, here's all the information, you go figure it out. And that's one of the key impact that we see making in the companies that we work for, because data engineers are probably the busiest people on the planet. And if you can shorten any part of their daily toil and reduce that in any way, they're highly appreciative of it.
Let me ask you this question. I guess, consumers, have heard about AI. Everyone's heard about AI. But with ChatGPT and Gen AI, there's a different level of now expectation as to what AI is, right? Every time we get some of these consumer impacts, and we then have to have people who are software producers, software engineering companies, all these startup founders have to kind of re-envision how they want to present their solution, because people's vision have kind of changed, right? And obviously, we talked about narrow versus wide. In your case, you guys have a defined problem. You're building it, the AI, the machine learning to do something very specific. When you're looking at that and you're looking at the wide component of AI, are we going to start seeing a shift maybe to more of these narrow solutions? Because obviously, ChatGPT is one LLM, does what it does very well, but not everyone should be building anything remotely close to that, because there's so many different problems that we could automate, simplify, tune, that doesn't even fall into that kind of that lane.
Yeah. First of all, you're absolutely right. Everybody's heard about AI. Whenever I hear my mom talking about technology, I know it's gone mainstream. So it's definitely gone mainstream. But look, it's not the solution to all problems. There are areas, take legal, for example, take healthcare, for example, or data engineering, for example, that require a level of expertise to really get down to the intricate levels of that problem that's at hand, or the task that needs to be done, or the process that needs to be performed. And those things need expertise put in terms of data into those systems to be able to perform those tasks really, really well, and those tasks completely. And that's where you need something that's, like you described it, more narrower, which really means you need to put subject matter expertise into something. Or you could be a jack of all trades or a master of one. It's kind of on the same lines, that to become a master at legalese, or to become a master at healthcare, and even healthcare is such a broad topic, something very specific in healthcare, you need to be able to feed that model, whatever model you're doing, all of the permutations, the combinations, the different varieties of data sets, to be able to train it on top of that, so it can produce reliable results for you that you don't have to then go validate afterwards and say, is this correct or is this not correct? And when you do something that's broad and try to apply that broad learning and knowledge to a broader set of environments, then it may work well in one and not so well in the other. And in certain tasks and industries, you need to be very precise about the results and the output that you get out of something. So there is definitely room for creating, I wouldn't call it narrow, but more specialized AI in all these different fields. And I think that's really where the market is going to go. They're going to use Gen AI as a baseline platform, which has knowledge about a variety of different subjects and topics and industries. But then when we start to apply it in enterprises, you're going to start seeing people write their own models or enhance the underlying LLM models to then become more tuned towards a specific task or a specific industry or a specific process. We're starting to see this across a lot of different industries already. Got several friends who are doing this for customer success, for customer service. We're seeing it happen in the HR world. We're really seeing it across all different functions and across all different industries. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing over the next handful of years is, how do we go and not only automate tasks that are happening in certain fields, but improve the customer experience and improve the output of a certain process so that's actually ultimately better for the customer.
And you guys obviously have built your AI. If you were to take us back and you were looking at the problem space, right? Data observability, it's something that data engineers use. You're trying to make data engineering, the lives of data engineers better, more efficient, get more done, less time, all those great things. When you guys were looking at what you could apply AI to, right? What problems that you could identify that could be modeled correctly, what was the process of looking for that thing? Because I think it's interesting because if we look at our lives, we can probably see stuff that we repeat every day. We're like, well, if I could just automate that, I wouldn't have to do it. When you look at technology and something as complex as data observability, and you're looking at that, there's got to be things that you see within the data that are consistent that you could potentially do that. I guess how does that process, especially being a software engineering company, just give us maybe just a high level insight in terms of how that process works?
Yeah. So when we started Unravel, AI wasn't sexy. This was, a few years ago. And it's only in the last year and a half that everything has AI enabled, AI inside into their product. So while AI definitely has its benefits, we looked at the problem not as where can we apply AI. We looked at it and said, how do we simplify the lives of data engineers? And AI became the mechanism to be able to do that very early in the game. And why did we choose AI is because the problems that data engineers have to solve every day is a complex set of problems. It's not an easy thing to fathom or understand. And then it takes a lot of toil and time to go and solve those particular things. If you have a simple, symptom like my data pipeline is failing today, or my data pipeline is not producing the right results today, an average engineer takes about 4 to 5 hours to go and resolve that problem. And then if you ask yourself why, it's because they have to first understand what's going on, and that what's going on is information that is usually stored in logs and metrics, which no human can actually read. And even if they can read and if they're experts at it, it takes them a long time to sift through them. Then you start to connect the dots and you say, maybe this is related to that. Oh, no, maybe that is related to this. And then you're going trial and error to try to resolve that problem. And you need to have expertise in these modern data stack systems like Spark and BigQuery and Snowflake and Kafka. And Amir may be good at Snowflake and I may be better at Kafka. And then you and I need to collaborate together to figure out whether this pipeline's broken. You get the picture. It's a complex world. And then we said, hey, but the data engineers have also got pressure to go and deliver on the promise of data for their companies. And we actually measured and we saw that people are spending more than 40% of their time, and sometimes 50% of their time, doing these mundane tasks or firefighting tasks rather than delivering data outcomes for their companies. And as the famous going says, there has to be a better way. And we sat down with these engineers and we literally, watched over their shoulders, hundreds of them, solving thousands of problems on how they were doing it. And then we started picking on tasks and we said, what if we brought all this data together? What if we did the correlation as the first step towards getting you the answer? That was good enough. Okay. After that, what do we automate root cause analysis itself? What do we give you a guided remedy to solve a problem? Then the next step was, what if we just solve the problem for you so you don't have to do these things? And then the next step is, can we predict that the problem can happen so that we can warn you this thing is about to happen before it happens so you don't even need to go and solve this problem? So when we think about the spectrum, there are certain things that we've been able to do because of the time that we spend on this problem, that we can predict things from happening. Then there is another class of things that we can automatically fix. And then there's a bigger class of things that we can give you guided remedies and recommendations for to go and solve that. And the data that we've gathered and analyzed has been the secret sauce, honestly. The algorithms, the techniques, they've existed since 50 years ago. It's the access to the volume and the types of data sets that's changed the game for us, at least. And that really is the secret sauce of how we do what we do so well. And I still feel we're getting started. There's a lot more that we haven't seen. And we'll get to see all of those, as we work with more and more customers and with more and more data engineers.
You mentioned you were looking over the shoulder, obviously, maybe not literally, but you were peering over the shoulder into the world of a data engineer to see how you could possibly observe and understand and identify those, right? And I'm kind of thinking about that. And obviously, the solution you're providing is to help kind of fill those gaps that they don't need to touch. And obviously, how this slipstreams into their workflow becomes interesting because it's supposed to benefit them, hopefully not disrupt them. And it's this bit of the symbiotic relationship. I have one with ChatGPT where it'll do a good job of cleaning up my emails for me so I can spend less time on them. It's a trivial aspect of AI. I'm not using it to anything of real importance. But when you're looking at this, where you are going to help speed up, improve, there's a lot of words we could throw at this to what the solution should provide. How do you envision a solution like yours kind of slipstreaming into data engineers' world and kind of what that might look like?
Yeah, so data engineers usually have a very well-defined life cycle, which maps to the development life cycle of their data pipelines. So that's usually a good framework to think about what steps do they do and where we could help. So if you start off with design and development, and then testing and promotion, and then maintaining and scaling as the broad ranges, Unravel helps in each of those three different spots. So when you think about design and development, you have tools like Copilot, which actually help you generate the code to go and do the things that you wanted to go and do. Well, when you look at the data ecosystem, there are multiple technologies that need to come together. You have a data ingestion technology, you have a workflow orchestration technology, you have a data warehousing technology. And to be able to connect the dots across these three things is one of the pieces missing, for example. So how do you design a data pipeline? You have to put a lot of factors into consideration around correctness, scale, efficiency, cost, and then obviously getting the right results. So keeping all those in mind, what the Unravel AI does, looks at how similarly running applications have done in the past. What are some of the variables and factors that they have looked into? So when you are designing something new, can we borrow from the best practices and give you that from your own company so that you can get a quick head start? Then when you get to testing, which you need to do before you move your application into production. That exercise is usually between the person who is writing the code and then a code reviewer when you do a pull request, for example. That process takes a while. It needs documentation. It needs the reviewer to come in and review your code, to give you feedback, then for you to go and fix it. And imagine doing that at like 10,000 apps a day. That's super time consuming. So what we've done is automated the testing and the checks that every pipeline has to go through. So if you integrate it with GitHub or any other repository that you may be using inside your company and you do a pull request, if you had Unravel, it would automatically analyze your pipeline, the code running on that pipeline, the underlying infrastructure that pipeline is going to run on, and give you in plain English, these are all the places that you should be improving or fixing before you promote this application into production. So that cycle of verification and promotion shrinks from 3 to 4 hours down to 3 minutes. And it's that quick. And then when you're in production, there's usually an operations team that's monitoring and managing everything because you've got thousands of these pipelines running there right now. And if something goes wrong, usually a team would have its L1, L2, L3 process where they would try to solve some classes of problems or bring in the person who wrote the application to solve a certain set of problems. And the biggest problem that we've seen over there is figuring out what the root cause is. And we see a lot of finger pointing sometimes happening as well. The infrastructure team says, it's the code. The application folks say, no, it's the infrastructure and the services. And a lot of time is wasted in just understanding, well, what's the problem? So Unravel will surface to you that, hey, out of the hundreds of things that could be going wrong, this is the problem today at hand for this particular problem or this particular application. And this is what you need to be going and fixing it. And this puts the power back into the data engineering team where they can now go and act on these problems without having the operations people be the bottleneck or vice versa. So it kind of levels the playing field throughout the organization where everybody becomes a quote unquote expert because they've got all these answers at their fingertips. And then, if you think about this not on an individual app level, the companies are spending dollars on the cloud and a lot of dollars on the cloud to make these data applications run well. And they have their own challenges where the data engineers get called in for. And this is a new problem that the data engineers have to face as well, which is, why is this thing so expensive? And can you run this for a cheaper cost? Because my data volumes are going to keep growing, or maybe this is just running inefficiently. There has to be a better way to run this thing. And that takes its own set of analysis and root cause to go and figure out what's inefficient and can I even run this at scale without incurring the cost that I'm incurring right now. So Unravel even helps out with those situations where companies that are running any of these data platforms literally deploy Unravel and tells you that, hey, we found X number of ways in which you could run the same thing in the same time. So not sacrificing performance or not sacrificing the amount of work that needs to be done, but for 20, 30% lesser than you are running it right now. And those are usually caught as inefficiencies in code, inefficiencies in runtime, how you're scheduling certain things, what kind of infrastructure are you choosing, things that nobody looks at proactively because they're all running to actually get the application in production. But once it's running in production, they start to look at it in hindsight and they say, maybe there's a way to improve these things. So from an organization perspective, we make them more proactive rather than being reactive, that only at the end of the month, when I overshoot my bill by 30%, do I look at it. You can warn them on day 18 that, hey, you're closing up on your budget. These are all the things you need to clean up to make sure that you're running on time. And that also saves the data engineers a lot of agony, because then they're brought in from the middle of their workday to say, go and fix these cost problems, or go and fix these efficiency problems.
Absolutely. I'm kind of listening to, and I guess when AI was first kicking around, a couple of years ago, I was talking to CEOs about AI, and the one question I was trying to ask at that time was the ROI. And I still find it interesting, depending on the product, how ROI gets established, because sometimes people just haven't implemented a product as AI. In your case, it sounds like it is a lot easier path, because you can actually dial in the effort, the cost savings. You can actually start attaching some of that ROI to it. Is that the case? Are you seeing ROI as an easy, or are you seeing ROI as a difficult use case within this space?
It's such an important question, especially now, because AI is, really differentiating between the haves and the have-nots, and it's becoming a race. And I think people forget about that first step, which is we're going to invest not just money, but time and our people's energy into it. How do we measure that we were successful on the other side? So where we've seen this problem with a lot of companies that are Fortune 500 companies, especially, or companies where their business is data, may not be the Fortune 500 companies, the gaming companies, the healthcare companies, the neobanks, which is all running on data at the end of the day. What we've helped them do is a couple of things. Number one, help you understand unit cost. Can you get to understanding what a unit of work, a single query, a data pipeline actually costs? Number two, can you optimize that so you know it's running the best possible way that it can? And then can you tie that up to your business services and product revenue and calculate a per unit cost? You understand your margins on those products. So to give you an example of this data-driven company, it's a credit reporting company, which is one of our customers. They give you credit scores. That's a data product. Anytime you get your credit score, either you or the company that's getting the credit score for you is paying this company some money. Obviously, there's other data products that this company has. How do you know what the price of that data report should be? Should it be $1? Should it be $7? Should it be $10? What should it be? So that you're a profitable business. And I know I'm not talking about AI over here, but just talking about data analytics, but it could be related to AI as well. That pipeline goes through so many stages and analyzes so many different customers together in one shot that's just hard to go and figure out that unit cost without knowing what each of the components cost, and then being able to segregate out and say, you know what, Amir's credit report actually costed me that much. So it's the building blocks cost that you need to know. You need to know the connection between all these different pieces, then understand how you can optimize it to get the best efficiency out, and then be able to allocate that to your per product unit cost. And then it's very easy to see what ROI you have. The second side of this is there are going to be things that are going to cost for experimentation. Not everything is going to become a data product. And there we encourage, data leaders to really think about the efficiency model, which is how many models are you actually creating versus putting in production versus it's starting to become a revenue generating or a cost saving product. And do the backward math to understand what was that development cost versus production running cost to the revenue that your company is generating or the cost these guys are saving, and try to do a division of those things to figure out, is this being effective for you or not? The biggest cost that we're seeing, number one, is the cloud cost. And the cloud costs continue to balloon up because it's so easy to start services, especially data services on the cloud. And that's amazing. And that means that you don't need to be a hardcore engineer to run data analytics on the cloud anymore. You can be somebody from marketing. You can be somebody from product. You can be somebody from finance. The flip side of that is it gets expensive. And it could get out of control if the person doesn't know the nuances of going and controlling these pieces. So being proactive in having a mentality of measure everything and record everything and be able to allocate costs to users, to projects, to business groups is something that we recommend highly in every organization, especially as data starts to get democratized and more people start to jump on it. So you're not looking reactively again and saying, I've blown through my $10 million cloud bill. Where did all that money go? You would know if you had allocated it correctly.
I guess you touched on something, and I'm kind of curious about it. We were talking about productizing data. That's a lot of people want to talk about productizing data because I think they're trying to unlock the data that they have. I guess when you're looking at it, you're looking at the product, you're looking at the average companies that are trying to go down that path. They're worried about cost. Is there a chance, as we see more of the ops side automated as your product kind of does, are we going to see more people willing to experiment and test and bring ideas to the table without spending as much due diligence? Because just it'd be cheaper to actually potentially test it versus think about it.
Yeah. So when we think about how AI is implemented in companies, right? And it's a big debate where, hey, will a run-of-the-mill company be able to use AI, or is it only for the Googles of the world? And what should he be doing with it, right? I think it comes down to a few things that AI can do if you think about different buckets. One is optimization, the other one is transformation, and the other one is innovation, right? The first thing of optimization is something that every company should be doing, right? You have people, you have processes, you have costs, you have these different systems that you have set up inside your organization to run it. Each of those steps in each process and function, I guarantee it has an optimization opportunity there, especially with AI. If you're a marketing person, you can think about your blog ideas using AI. If you're a legal person, you can do a back and forth and redlining MSAs through AI, so on and so forth. So you should always be looking at optimization. I know it's not sexy, but it saves real dollars. It improves the experience of your internal customers and all of the employees inside your companies as well. So it's a necessary thing to go and do for sure, and something that every company can actually do. Then it comes down to transformation, which is I'm doing something in a certain way today. How can I enhance that current product and service with AI, right? That's the next level of things that we're doing. So it's doing the things that I was already doing in a newer fashion using AI. And then innovation, which is where everybody's mind goes to first, which is what's some cool new thing that I can do with AI? That takes time. And that takes iteration. And that takes a lot of data to actually even start on the right path. So for that, what we recommend companies who have the ambition to do that is first and foremost, start collecting all your data. Do not let go of any data set. Any interaction you have with your customer, everybody's got Gong these days, or your CRM software. If you want to record your customer interactions, if you're a healthcare company, you have other ways to record it. Just interaction between employees itself, all your Slack nodes. You are sitting on a lot of good data. And once you have that data, you can start to look for innovation. You can start to look at things that your company could be doing to improve certain things and try modeling those pieces out, which could lead into some really innovative solutions as well. So don't think about innovation as being the only thing with AI. It could be the optimization as well that your company can use today. And there's plenty of tools out there that you can just get off the shelf without having to create your own models and AI algorithms.
Awesome. I think that's some great advice. People are probably always looking to you or looking at AI industry leaders as to where to start. I think you just provided some great starting points. I appreciate that. I'm sure people might have questions. We can't cover it all this episode. You didn't even scratch the tip of the iceberg, proverbially. If somebody does want to reach out to you to continue the conversation of purpose-built AI or what Unravel does, what is a good way of touching base with you?
Yeah, with me personally, it's my first name, Kunal, Kunal, at unraveldata.com. To learn more about Unravel, to learn more about AI, what we are doing, what our companies are using AI for, and how we're helping them out. Unraveldata.com has plenty of information as well. And then hopefully I get to see Amir again at the next Tech Trek, and we can field some of those questions there also.
There we go. I like it. We'll have to do a follow-up. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing. It was awesome. I always look at these and I'm like, I have a lot more questions. I could go another hour with the guests, and I'm like, he's got to get back to work. So I really do appreciate your time.
No, thank you so much. Likewise, Amir. It's a pleasure talking to you.
All right. That's it for the episode. Back again, different guest, different topic. Hey, if you like the podcast, it was useful, share it with someone else that might find it interesting. That's how the podcast grows. And I appreciate everyone who does that every week, every episode. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a review. Tell me how I can improve it, or give me a sense as to what topics you'd like to hear in the future. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Let me know. Otherwise, until next time, thank you and goodbye.